The Garden Report is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Hey, Buddy Manning here. Welcome to a news report. Sam Hauser, the latest Celtic to sign an extension, 4 years, $45 million for Hauser. That takes him through the 2029 season and prevents him from going to free agency next summer, where he surely would have been a hot commodity if his shooting run to start his NBA career continued here. This continues Brad Stevens' long run of extensions. Just this summer alone, they do Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Hauser now. Drew Holiday is locked up long-term. Kristaps Porzingis is signed for the next 2 seasons. So in total, the Celtics now have 8 rotation players signed for 2025-26 when their repeater tax begins. But let's start with Hauser. This became important to do for a number of reasons. First, as we mentioned, getting ahead of that free agency next summer, where that price, I think, certainly would have ballooned if he continued to play 3-and-D like he did last year, all the way through the NBA Finals. He slumped in the East Finals, but came back with major shots and defensive stops in the early portion and late stages of the Finals. They needed him out there as they try to crowd Jason Tatum in the paint. And his confidence just grew as time went on to the point where he became one of the mainstays in this lineup. Now, as we debated this extension, you started to think, all right, it's just going to add to that luxury tax bill. He's probably the guy that's a little bit more expendable out of the top 6-7 players on this team. And it's probably going to cost a decent amount to extend him. This cost about 11 a year here is a little high, especially as the deal progresses here. Now, who's going to come off the books during that period is going to be the important question, because I think Hauser is going to stay. There's no reason, unless his career tails off, to dump $11 million as the cap continues to rise here. So that's another reason it was important to do this, is because he's one of the cheaper contracts going forward into the future for this team. Payne Pritchard, similar thing. They got him at about $6, $7, $8 million over 4 years. This is that inflation going on here. I think when you adjust everything, this is probably a similar value, maybe a little bit of a higher value deal for Hauser here, who's been a little bit more impactful and consistent for the Celtics here. But everyone's going to ask, how do you manage this money? And I think right now the plan for the Celtics is just to keep all the players on their books, keep this team together. And when the time comes financially or competitively, especially, to start making some tweaks to the roster, move some money, maybe break one big contract into some smaller ones, it's going to be difficult, because when you look at this summer, not a lot of big money moved, like 30 million deals. It was more medium-sized, smaller-sized contracts moving to get under apron lines, to avoid taxes. And the Celtics are just saying, we'll embrace that while we're championship contenders here. And when that ends, we'll make some decisions. I think the most obvious, as I've said, way that they'll start to move off money when the time comes is just letting Porzingis' contract expire after 2026. So that means in 26, when Hauser's signed for probably 11 million or so at that point, Tatum's making 50 million, Brown's making like 55. You're going to be paying close to 500 million between salary and tax for this team. And the understanding I have is that the Celtics expect to do that as new ownership comes in, as they continue to contend for championships here. Certainly if the Celtics win a second straight championship in 2025, I think they're going to pay to keep that team together, as long as all things are equal going into 2026. And beyond that, you're looking at Porzingis, you're looking at Drew Holiday. How competitive and desirable is he still at that point? I think you need Derek White around long term, and that looks like a value deal as the cap continues to rise. And of course, you're going to pay the big bucks for Tatum and Brown at that point. I would expect Al Horford to probably become a minimum if he stays beyond 2024. So that's going to save $7-8 million based on what he's making right now going into 2026. But you're still going to be paying massive tax at that point. I think everybody is curious to see how the Celtics are going to sustain under that, manage that new ownership. Do they have a little bit deeper pockets? Or are they going to instill some directives at that point to shave a little bit money off? That doesn't seem likely, at least right now. Brad Stevens, in doing this deal, in doing all these extensions, has to have some idea that it's going to be some commitment from new ownership. Though when we talked to him the other day, he said he's just doing his job how he would otherwise right now until things change. And he's pretty much just watching this process like we all are. So that's the underlying thing going on right now is the Celtics get a deal done with Hauser, 4 years, $45 million. He's locked up, will no longer go to free agency next summer. Celtics have one roster spot open. They'll continue to be patient with that. As Summer League concludes today, we'll have postgame for more conversation on this after Celtics 76ers today, the final game of Summer League out there in Vegas. Noah Dalzell will be joining me, maybe others as well. But us two will definitely be here to continue talking about this Hauser contract. And USA, close call out in London against South Sudan. We'll talk about that as well as the Summer League that was for the Celtics here. But they signed Hauser to a 4-year deal today. We are brought to you by Game Time. Go to the Game Time app. Use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase over there. Terms apply. Concerts, WNBA getting going again here. MLB. I just bought a couple baseball tickets over there on the Game Time app. Great experience. See where your seat is. And again, flash deals always going on. Deals by sections. A lot of great features over there on the Game Time app, including seeing where you're going to sit. So go over there, use the code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's it. This has been a news edition of the Burn Report. I'm Bobby Manning. We'll talk to you later today.